Hey, hey, hey.
Welcome back. Hey, Colin, it's good to see you again. But it's been
It's
a whole 7 days, and I have so much to share. So,
I'm excited to dive in and I've missed you.
missed you too, bro. Missed you too. A really cool thing happened this past weekend. So my wife's birthday was Wednesday, last week Wednesday,
Yeah.
and had plans to take her out. Well, the following day because we had plans and such, like work plans, the 30th, and we got this business order of gift baskets, and they wanted them in like 3 days. They wanted them on Friday, so our plans had to shift to the side a little bit. But I finally got to take her to a river experience, river lunch. So
Okay.
you go up into the hills, and then you'll go on a hike to the waterfalls. And we brought our floaty, and we met some other amazing couples. All having birthdays, crazy enough. So I guess it's a great birthday gift. And we floated, and we jumped, and we splashed water, and we took photos and videos like little children. And then we hiked back down and had this amazing Jamaican, what we call ital lunch, right there on a table in the river. Well, it wasn't very heavy, it wasn't very strong, So you
Yeah.
walk, running through the camp, and there's a kitchen there, and there's a Rastafarian, cooking. They don't use salt when they cook, okay? They don't use salt, but it's amazing cooking. So if you ever visit Jamaica, you need to eat what we call ital food, Ital. Okay, and so we had some fried fish. I think it was snapper, fried fish, and steamed cabbage with okra and ackee. Do you know what ackee is?
No.
Oh my gosh, you're missing out, man. So ackee and saltfish is Jamaica's national dish. So
Okay.
it's a fruit. It's not sweet. It's savory. It's a fruit that opens naturally on the tree, and it's yellow with black seeds. So you pluck them out. There's about three ackee pegs in each shell. You pluck it out. You throw away the shell, and then you pluck off the black seeds. You clean it out. Clean out the little stem thing inside it. Then you boil it. Once it's boiled to a kind of a soft, till it's soft, but not too soft. You don't want it mushy, but soft but firm. Then you mix it with saltfish, or which is salted fish. Like it's cured with salt over time, and we boil the salt fish and then mix them together, and it's absolutely amazing. You can add tomatoes, sweet peppers. So we had ackee also in that dish, eating out of what we call a calabash shell. So a calabash an African and Caribbean fruit that has a big. So it's pretty big. It's like the size of a small melon.
Yeah.
And once you clean it out and you dry it, you get like some little dishes, like some natural dish. People design them as well and sell them as art pieces. Make earrings and necklaces out of them. So we had them served in some calabash dishes, and it was just delicious. And then we totally destroy the moment by playing a game of Uno. There's no friendships. There's no friendship. There's no marriage. There's nothing when you're playing Uno. Yeah, I don't know you. So that was an epic weekend. You know.
That's great to hear. When you make friends, are they also from like your area? Like was this far away that you went, or was it kind of like living in the town that you're living in, like Kingston?
Yeah. So two of them were from Kingston. Two were from Central Jamaica, another
Okay.
popular town that could
Yeah.
possibly be a city. Oh, maybe it's not big enough for a city, but called Mandeville. Mandeville, yeah. So Mandeville is pretty popular, and so they came up, spent a night over, and then came to the river. The following day. It's a birthday experience. So with
Yeah.
two other couples, and one's from Kingston, one's from Mandeville. Yeah.
Ah, I love this. I love days on the river. Growing up in Atlanta, that was a thing that we did a lot in high school. It's called like floating along the Chattahoochee, where you could kind of like drive not far away, get like your floaty stuff, and kind of just have like a lazy river experience. People bring
Oh,
food, drinks. Yeah, I always enjoyed that.
nice. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And that's in Atlanta, right?
Yeah. It's like yeah, it's called the Chattahoochee River.
The Chattahoochee,
The Chattahoochee.
Chattanoochee,
Chattahoochee. I'll drop it.
Chattahoochee.
I'll drop it in the chat for you.
Chattahoochee. Oh, okay, I found it. River. Oh, nice. Chatta. Oh, nice. So,
That's why I always liked growing up in Atlanta, because I feel like you get like an urban city. Like obviously Atlanta is like an urban environment, but like because it's kind of built around the car, you could kind of drive not far and then be
hmm.
totally like out of the city in something that doesn't really seem like, when you look at that, like this doesn't seem scream big city type
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what I like about Atlanta. It's like you go not drive not far, 20 minutes, and all of a sudden you're in like nature off the beaten path that doesn't make you feel like you're in a big city anymore.
exactly. That's exactly
Yeah.
the experience we had this past weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20
Uh,
minutes out and you're like in a different area. You're not in the city anymore.
yep.
And
Yeah.
it's a great little, getaway.
That's great. So your
Yeah.
wife had a good birthday?
Oh, she loved it. She absolutely loved it. River, out of town, food, perfect combination. Great people, you know. So perfect combo.
Beautiful. I'm happy for you guys.
Yeah, thank you. And today I know is a very special day. All right. All right.
So my mother says.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she planned it. Say on the 6th of May, I'm gonna have, a wonderful little child who's gonna grow up, give no trouble whatsoever. He's gonna be a perfect little boy. He's gonna grow up and he's gonna create software. Happy birthday, Colin.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's always good to have another year around the sun, time of
Yeah.
reflection. Yeah, I love this time of the year. It's like I'm not like a huge birthday guy, but I feel like it's kind of fun to like part of the cyclical reflection, to start fresh. Like I also like the timing because it's always like right before the summer, which I like. It's kind of the best time of the year. I feel like the promise of what the summer can be, starting to get hotter, things like that. So yeah, life is good. What can I say?
Yeah. So, what are you thinking about at this point in your life? You're about to go through another 365 and a quarter days.
Yeah,
Do you set goals? Do you reflect? Do you change things? Do you keep things the same? Like, what's
I,
going through your mind?
I feel like I'm entering the stage of life where I just like want things to like pause, if that makes sense. It's like when you're younger, you want things to speed up. You like I want to be older. When you're like a teenager, you just want to be like 21. Or like when you're
Yeah.
like 21, you want to be like 25. Or like even when you like get up to like 28, it's like, oh, like 30. But then 30s are like kind of tough, because you're still kind of figuring it out, but you're like, 35, then I'm going to be like, right where I want to be. And I've kind of learned throughout life that you're never where you want to be. There's always more, but
Mm.
things are good. I'm just grateful. That's the way I feel. It's like I'm just at like the point of life where I just hope that nothing changes. I mean, obviously you always have goals and like want things to happen. But like I feel like I just feel like blessed. I like what I'm working on. I like, my God, like thankfully like everyone in my life is happy and thriving in their own way, which is fun to see, and live like vicariously through people. Just working on interesting problems. I feel like I'm at a point in my career where I feel like I'm able to start giving back, which is exciting. It's like all those things that like you kind of, you can't do that stuff in your early 20s and like later 20s. It's just not time yet. There's seasons for everything.
Yeah.
But I feel like right now, it's like I've never really felt better. I feel better now than I did 10 years ago, to be totally honest, just because of like, as you get older, you get a little bit more wiser. It's like all the little things like diet, drinking water, exercise. It's like things that you just got to like live life to kind of grasp how do you make it work for you. But, later 30s, it's like things start clicking. You've been around the block enough times to kind of know what to stay away from and stay to do that. I just want things to continue. That's the way I feel. It's like I'm grateful for every day. I'm grateful for the opportunities that I've had. I'm excited about the opportunities yet to come. Yeah, and just kind of like feel like I'm flowing a little bit more through life. So yeah, it's just I wake up just grateful. That's all I can say. Like, thank God that nothing bad has happened so far, and I've had bad things happen. So it's like as long as we can kind of stay away from that and just more of this, it's like would just be nice to like pause. But so is life. This too shall pass. That's kind of like the way that I kind of flow through life. Like, the good old pass, the battle pass. I just hope that the next few years are just exciting. That's what exciting, thriving, fun. I'll get to meet a lot of interesting people. Yeah, I was talking to my dad this morning, and he was like, You're getting old." And I was like, "Hold on a second." I was like, "You got to get through the midlife before you can say you're old." So that's kind of how I feel. It's like you're right. I'm not young, but no, I'm not old. I'm just like thriving in the middle, and I'm okay with that.
Awesome, man. I'm approaching my 30s, and I've been preparing myself mentally. Like, for example, like Jesus. Jesus is a big figure that I look up to. And oh, sorry. So Jesus started his ministry when he was 30. Got baptized and he started, healing the sick and, preaching and all that. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm approaching that age where should I be, starting my ministry? Should I, start going out there and start being known for something great and amazing that's going to change the world? That dozens and hundreds of years later, they'll be talking about that guy, O'Shane, Panton. And he walked the earth, well, drove, and he did these great things, and for humanity. Like, I'm just wondering, and so I've been reflecting a lot and praying a lot, making plans to see how can I step into my ultimate purpose,
Yeah,
through my branding. I think LinkedIn has a lot to do with it, and
yeah,
and even you, Colin. Yeah,
yeah,
I think there are what you call destiny helpers. They help you get closer to that destiny that you're supposed to, live
yeah.
out. And so,
I feel the same way about you. So I agree that we're walking the right path. When I turned 30, I think I've shared this with you, but it's worth sharing again. That around like when I was 30, I read this book, Think and Grow Rich. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
yeah, Napoleon Hill.
Yeah. So that I remember having a lot of the same thoughts as you at that stage, at that point. And I remember one thing that stuck out to me in that book was it talked about how, statistically speaking, most people, if you look back at history, who have created big things that people like, who have accomplished what you just described of, somebody looking back and being like, oh, that person really did something. Most people started that thing at 40. That was like a data point that he had. Um, when I read that, it was inspiring to me because I was like, oh, maybe I'm early. Like, I'm only 30. So, I'm not saying it's just a data point. It's like everybody's different. So I'm not saying like wait. I'm just saying that like it kind of made me put things in perspective. And now that I'm approaching 40, not, another year, I kind of understand why that's the case. That's what I would say. Because, like I said, sometimes you just got to like have your reps, and reps take years to kind of feel like you understand what to do enough to make that decision of whatever it is for you to then like lean in to the journey of understanding that anything worthwhile and anything that you're going to do that is big takes time. Like regardless, it is what it is. That's like life. That I kind of yeah, I just felt like it's like it's an important thing to remind people because I actually feel like we have a warped in culture today, especially with social media leaning young. Like, so the data that we get presented with, like, obviously is not like based off of where we're at and like the trajectory of social media. You don't see a lot of 40s and 50-year-olds talking about the trajectory of their life on social media. But I would actually think that based off that data point, majority of people who are building really interesting things are not talking about it on social media. I don't think that'll always be the case because those people didn't really grow up with it. But we see a lot of young people talking about their life's work. And I just feel like it's important to kind of put that in perspective of like, most people who accomplish great things, like very great things that everybody's talking about, most of them started it around the age of 40.
Wow, interesting.
That's
Yeah.
what Hill said.
Yeah, I
Like,
know Colonel Sanders certainly started after, 40. And right
yeah,
now, KFC is Jamaica's national dish after ackee and saltfish. Like, yeah, KFC lines are like every Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, even at like midnight. It's like jam packed. It's crazy. But
one of the ones that stuck out to me, because these are big people in Atlanta. Have you ever heard of Home Depot?
yeah,
The Home Depot guys are like big in Atlanta. They changed, if you look at like two people that changed the city of Atlanta during my lifetime, it's the Home Depot guys, because they are so wealthy and then created such a big company that's based in Atlanta. So there's a lot of ripple effects, let's just say, through the money that they've kind of built up, like the hospitals. It's like, it just looks a lot different than when it was when I was younger. And when you peel back, who's doing a lot of this stuff, it's those guys. The Atlanta has a huge aquarium. Do you know that story? Have you ever heard of like the huge
no,
aquarium?
tell me about it
Uh,
while I Google it simultaneously.
Atlanta has one of the biggest, has like the biggest aquarium in like the southeast. It has like these massive whales, like in it. It's crazy. It's like a beautiful building. It's one of the biggest aquariums in like the United States, in the world, I think. And when you look at the map of Atlanta, Atlanta is landlocked. So you got to think about this. How did Atlanta, that's not near water, get the biggest aquarium? How does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? You have to export everything that's in that aquarium from somewhere else to get it there. None of that makes sense. But the Home Depot guy did it for that particular reason, because he said that's what entrepreneurship is about. Like he's like, I know. He's like, the reason that we have to do it in Atlanta is because it doesn't make sense. Because the little kid who's going to be sitting there looking up at the whales asking, how did this get here? The answer is because we wanted to put it here. That's the answer. Like, because we can and we want to. And it's inspiring to be able to say, well, it doesn't make sense. And everyone says you can't do it. And there's obviously so many other easier paths to do this. But that's why we chose to put it in Atlanta, because that's what we do. And that's because we build businesses and we do the hard things. And even the aquarium is like, it's really inspirational story, these guys, the Home Depot guys, because they run it like a business. So it's like they set up with their trust and things like that make it so the aquarium is a good example of like ensuring that it has a business attached to it that can allow it to not like just cease to exist basically after they die and the money kind of runs out. It's like always been an important attribute for all of these things that they do, that it's made with like a entrepreneurial mind that can self-fund, like through state sponsors or just like different ways to make money, selling tickets. It's a business. And so like they set it up and invest their money to get it going, but like so we could give back to the community. And so it's like whenever you go to the aquarium and you look around and you see that, you're like, I don't understand why this is here. Like, the biggest sharks, like it's the whales. I've seen them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like literally the staple is like the whale. It's the biggest whale that exists like in the ocean is sitting in a tank in Atlanta. Wow. When you go to Atlanta and you're like, how does this exist? Like,
the whale shark is what you're talking about. Yeah, that's awesome.
Why is this whale shark in the middle of downtown Atlanta? There's like two. And like the aquarium tank is massive, but that's the answer. Entrepreneurship, because Atlanta is based around a city of entrepreneurs.
Wow, that's a big fishing hook, but it worked. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Moby Dick, look out.
Yeah, there's this whole great story they have at the aquarium. They had to literally it's crazy when you read about how they got the whale shark from the ocean into Atlanta. Like that's like, how do you do that? You can't drive it.
That's a good question.
That's why he did it, because it's like he wanted to inspire kids to look it up and think about the ingenuity that needed to go into making that happen, and how crazy everyone said you were crazy for
Mm,
doing it until it's there.
and until it's done. So, Colin, what comes first? Is it the ingenuity or is it the capital to back it? So these Home Depot guys are clearly, successful. All right. Do you think they had the vision for the aquarium first, or did they say, we have a bunch of money, let's just throw it at something that's innovative?
That's such a good question. I don't know. I don't
Mm,
think it starts that way. I think that, like, their ingenuity came from something going back to like the story. Like, if you look it up, they were into their 40s when they started Home Depot. It goes back. That's why I brought it up. Like, they were actually into their career. They were like 40s, or I think it was in their 40s. I don't think that a lot of times when you do those like um, embellished altruistic endeavors later in life, you don't start out thinking that that's going to be the case, right? Like, you start off just building a business, and obviously there's an element of luck associated with it. But if you read the Home Depot guy's story, um, they just had a good idea. It was the idea. It was like it was doing something differently than it's ever been done. So the idea of buying in bulk to allow for like low prices for everyday goods in a warehouse style was novel at the time. When you read their story, people thought that they were crazy, because at that point in time, you had mom and pop shops who uh, wouldn't hold the amount of stuff that you could get at a Home Depot. It's like crazy when you think about the inventory management needing to do that, and the predictive, like making sure that you could, uh, you know, buy things in bulk and like maintain the capital to do that. A lot of people thought that they were crazy because they were that was like a novel idea. But the way that they saw it is, if you buy in bulk, you can bring down prices, and then everyone always wants to be like do home improvement type stuff. So like they just thought it could be like an everyday store to do like home improvements, bring down costs. Like, they just thought it was a good idea. So I thought like I think the ingenuity comes first. It was like kind of banking on the fact that you think that it's important endeavor to do and it's good for people.
mm,
Because you see the common thread between building a Home Depot and the aquariums. They're not doing it for any other reason than they think it's a good idea for the people. Like, that's what I think. Whenever I see a lot
mm.
of entrepreneurs, it's like sometimes people think things are good ideas mostly because they think that they can make money off of it. Like, you see a list all the time. Why are you doing this? Oh, because I think that if I can make a lot of money. Most good entrepreneurs are more about like servicing customers. Well, like, if we do this, people could buy things and do it cheaper. Like, so we have to do it, because if we can't, I understand it's hard, but if we can manage inventory, and those are the two guys. There was like a Arthur Blank and Bernie Marcus were the two guys that are their names are all over town in Atlanta. Bernie
Yeah.
Marcus is like the entrepreneurial operator, high energy. He just recently passed away, but he's the one who did the aquarium. Very inspiring guy, high energy, the operator, the ideas guy. And then you have Arthur Blank, who is the accountant. He's the one who keeps Bernie Marcus in check a little bit, because Bernie Marcus is, let's go, go, go. And
Like
then
a
Arthur
visionary.
Blank, yeah,
Yeah.
he's the visionary. And Arthur
Knows.
Blank was like his accountant of like, okay, but like, let me make sure that, we could actually do this inventory stuff. And you need both. And so it's like a shared vision between complementary skill sets that lead to success. And then they take that ideology, that methodology, and apply it to different disciplines. And then you have the aquarium. It's like, at that point, I think that like those guys, just made so much money that it's more about like, how do you spend money in a way that's like inspiring, and not
Mm.
just like for yourself. Uh, and they have different ideas on how to do that, but Bernie Marcus is all about, that's where he came up with the aquarium. And the story of how he did that was like very entrepreneurial. Like, he got Coca-Cola as an example, Coca-Cola is based in Atlanta. So they're like the generation even before Home Depot that like when we were little, like there's a lot of Coca-Cola money in Atlanta. But they got like Coca-Cola owned land in downtown Atlanta from generation before that donated that land to the project for the aquarium. So it would revitalize the downtown area because Bernie Marcus only wanted to do this if it was like in downtown Atlanta. Cause he's like, no. Cause then people are like, well, can we do it like on the outskirts of Atlanta if we're going to bring in a whale? Like, how are you going to bring this into downtown Atlanta? But he was even like, no. It has to be in downtown Atlanta because that even makes it better. And they're like, well, how do you get land in downtown Atlanta? And that's where he like went to the Coca-Cola guys and like, you know, his foundation, Coca-Cola donated the land that they kind of had access to because they thought it would be beneficial for the city as well. So it's like, you know, you see the ideation and the energy that you bring to the entrepreneurial table, I think is what kind of brings people along. And then you could figure out the capital side of things. Because it's like he's like a billionaire, but like you can't just buy up. It's not like available to get a plot in downtown Atlanta, right? Like it doesn't exist. But if you have the right idea and the right framework for the right reasons, that's his story. He's like, well, once Coca-Cola understood what he was doing and he was going to do this, they wanted to support. And they're like, okay, we will actually donate part of our land for this because we think it's good for Atlanta and the downtown area. We agree that if you do that, like we'll donate the land.
Wow. God bless Coca-Cola. That's awesome. That's inspiring. So, in essence, people get behind a vision. People get behind a story, I might say, a story of triumph, a story of helping others, a story of selflessness. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions today, Colin, about stories and storytelling. No, we specialize in LinkedIn, and so I see stories sometimes on LinkedIn. People will post a photo of themselves of 10 years ago and then parallel it against what they're doing now in their career. And they write a story. It's pretty lengthy. You can't get away with that on Instagram. Nobody's going to read that. TLDR. Too long, didn't read. You're not going to get away with that on Instagram. You're probably not going to get away with it on Facebook. Maybe you could, but on LinkedIn, I find people read lengthy posts and they actually comment and they encourage you and such. But the essence is that I think the stories behind these posts are what leads to the engagement and the resonance. But what can you tell me about stories on telling stories on LinkedIn or social media?
Yeah. So one of the things that I see amongst people is this difference between like people versus information. So, you know, there's two ways to think about it. Like I was having this conversation over the weekend with somebody who was talking about posting on LinkedIn, writing for LinkedIn, and you know, everybody wants to be like have influence, right? So how are you going to create the influence? One path that we were talking about was trying to educate people based off of information, right? Here are the things that I think are important, and I'm going to push out that information. So, you know, I'm going to summarize the things that are going on in the news, things that are going on in AI, things that are going on in this market, and I'm going to push that out for people. And because I will, you know, people, you know, want to hear summaries of information, they'll follow me. That's one strategy. I'm not saying that's a bad strategy, but I feel like that lacks storytelling because then you're just pushing information out and you're not thinking about how to pull people in. And the reality is that people get pulled in and drawn in through stories. Oftentimes stories have people associated with them because, you know, where stories usually involved a
hero
a
and a
hero.
villain.
Yeah, right. Or at least a person, like someone that can relate to them, because that's how we kind of relate with one another and you know, deliver complicated ideas through stories. So I find whenever I see people who are doing that push marketing of information, oftentimes I feel like the writing within that lacks people. It lacks storytelling because they think that the information is what people are after, when in reality, they're there for the individuals. They're there for the personalities. You see this on YouTube all the
Oh,
time. Like,
okay.
what types of channels do well on YouTube? It's the ones where people
Mr.
actually.
Beast.
Well,
Mr. Beast.
Mr. Beast is actually a good example, right? Like Mr. Beast has characters, right? It's like a lot of people like Mr. Beast. They like him. The brand is him. Obviously, that's an outlier, so let's not focus on Mr. Beast because he
Okay.
is an anomaly. But
Right.
I find that a lot of times people, people like learning from people more than they like necessarily the information. You can get the information from AI, but they like the personality and the style of the individual who's telling the story. That's what they're kind of attracted to. So I always like to tell people, if you want to push out information, make sure not to lose sight of the fact that they're there for your spin on it. What's your take on it? They're not just there for the 3 bullet points. They're there for your interpretation of what it means for you, lessons learned, what's the story behind it. And I find that oftentimes people don't really think about that part of it because they're just purely pushing out the information, keeping it somewhat personal.
Oh, so I guess the information, you push information, but you pull with personality.
Yeah,
You
pull with
pull with
people.
your unique perspective on what it is that you're sharing with others. I think that is it. That
It is.
that, that I've seen or noticed.
Yeah. And some people do that really well because they're authentic, right? So you could kind of tell, especially today, with AI, is this person writing? Is it like truthful? I would say. Is it authentic to this person? Are they sharing their unique selling position? So the things that I always kind of see that people are doing on LinkedIn, especially, are sharing wisdom, or sharing their take on a particular. I actually had this conversation with my dad's friend who posts a lot on LinkedIn, and he was asking me about his posts. And he just totally pushes out updates about his company. Owns a big business, very interesting guy. He pushes out updates on his business, like, this is what we did this week. And somebody told him that he's actually seen his posts go down in views and impressions lately because he's been on LinkedIn for a really long time. And he always just pushes out updates and like images. He has a big food business. So, hey, like, we launched this product, or hey, like, this is what the team did. So I was talking to him, and he wants to grow on LinkedIn, and the algorithm's changing to push more about relevance than simply post. How relevant is your post? So I had shared with him, I was like, you got to write from the perspective of sharing not just the update, but what's your take on the update? Because think about this from the algorithm's perspective. If you're just pushing out an update on your business, then the relevance associated with that post are people who know your business. So the amount of people that LinkedIn will show that to algorithmically are the people who might be interested in following your business. But if people don't know your business and they don't know you, then why would LinkedIn show that post to other people? Now compare that to you telling the story about, how you met your client, what you thought about them, what you've learned from the relationship. And like, now if you're giving advice to like an entrepreneur who might be in the beginning stages of developing a relationship with clients, how you can kind of overcome certain specific obstacles to get to a time of success. Whatever the story is that kind of wraps up your wisdom and unique perspective, if you write that, maybe with an update, but like kind of focus the story on that, now you're giving the algorithm more reason to show that to people who might not know who you are, because the relevance about what you're saying is applicable now to maybe someone that's 25 that's just starting in the food industry.
Yeah.
Right. You're talking about vendors. So you're actually now feeding the algorithm something that the algorithm could say, oh, like, this might be relevant to someone who's 30 that works in coffee, or 25 that's talking about a lot about like wanting to be a chef or wanting to break into the industry. You're giving more relevance to the algorithm. So the only way that you can let the algorithm give it to more people is you share your unique story and let the algorithm kind of determine and bring you more inbound people who are like, oh, like, I don't know who this person is. Let me click on their profile. Oh, they're a influential CEO with 40 years of experience. I should follow them because I'm in their industry. I would like to see more from them. Compare that to someone who just posts updates about their company that nobody really cares about.
Yeah, I'm guilty. I'm so guilty of that. All right. And yeah, I do content for, for my clients, but I don't do content for myself. It's terrible. I know. It's horrible, but I'm changing that in 2025. I'm changing that this year. As I approach age 30, all right, I'm gonna start my LinkedIn ministry, all right, if you want to call it that. But I'm gonna apply these tips. Those are good tips, Colin. So in essence, whatever I'm gonna post, try to find and apply my unique spin and perspective on it. That I think that gives it more color. Gives it
Yeah.
more color. It gives it more, I guess, more what you call this, more branches, more
Yeah.
branches to stretch out and reach more people potentially,
Yeah.
due to the grace of the algorithm. All right, cool. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'd love to
Well,
meet these algorithms one day. you know
I,
my God.
I it's funny you say that. I think it's really important that people think about what an algorithm actually is because you just personified it. And I totally get that. I've done
Mr.
that with people in
Algorithm,
conversation.
what's wrong with
Yeah.
you?
Like Mr. Algorithm, I want to meet the algorithm or
Change
like
all the
whatever
time.
happens. Yeah. Under the hood, the reality of the algorithm is that there's computers scanning the context of the post and making a determination statistically over relevance. Who is this relevant for? Because the algorithm wants to match your information with somebody that it finds relevant. Because why? Because if you have a news feed of relevance, then you stay on the platform longer. You're not
Yeah.
going to. That's what it's optimizing for, is to keep people engaged. So if it's not relevant, you're going to leave. So they're trying to figure out relevance, but now think about how you apply that to working with the algorithm. Is writing for an audience is kind of the easiest way to think about it. Telling a story, it's another way to think about it. Like, tell a story, whatever, don't overthink it. Just make sure that you're telling a story for somebody, and kind of make it somewhat obvious of whether or not that's a new entrepreneur or somebody in a particular industry, or maybe it's just to your network of people, whoever is in your network, to my
Mhm.
LinkedIn ministry, to whoever it is. Think about how to write a story for them. If you do that, then you're kind of making it easier for the algorithm to know what are you trying to create relevance for, so it can help, so you can work with the algorithm in a helpful way. Versus
Mhm.
what I see is a lot of people will just push out, here are the top three things, kind of like from an AI generated bot that is not really relevant for anybody. It's trying a little too hard to hack the algorithm to say,
Yeah.
I think this is relevant to me, therefore it's got to be relevant to other people. And I feel like oftentimes when people try to go down that path of just hacking what they think the algorithm wants, that's when they usually don't really get a lot of results, because they're not really thinking about relevance in like
To the
in a real
audience.
sense. Yeah, to
Yeah.
like an actual audience.
Okay, yeah, they're trying to please the algorithm, not their connections or their followers. Well, so
Yeah,
how do
or just
you write?
figuring out how to like attract more people by saying I'm writing for an audience.
Yeah. So how do you write a story? Now, I can take it back to when I was in high school, growing up in the countryside. Shout out to St. Mary High School, and we had to write a ton of stories in English language class and English literature. And I remember a few things. I do know we need an opening. All right, we need an opening. We need a problem. We need a solution. And I think we need like how did you, yeah, like the outcome, the
Yeah.
outcome. is it a similar framework that we could use when writing stories for LinkedIn or telling stories? Let's say you're on a sales call. Do you have to start necessarily with like context? Okay, I was at X place, and then this happened, which was the problem. It turned into this is what I did to solve it, and then this is the outcome. Or is there more to it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I personally feel like I don't like to get people too boggled down into templates and scripts because I feel like sometimes then it loses authenticity. And the reality is a lot of times it's just a matter of practice because you're writing for an audience. And so like, is your audience have a long attention span? Do they have a short attention span? Are they
Hmm.
readers? Are they not readers? Right.
Yeah.
So it's like a better story for someone who's not reading might be to start posting yourself on camera because your audience aren't long readers, right? They're the TLDR crowd. Or
Yeah.
you might, you know what, my audience is sophisticated. They're readers. So like I really want to impress them with the structure of my post. I see that, and there's no right or wrong answer, right? I see certain people who are getting a lot of engagement with very long stories on LinkedIn, and sometimes people get a lot of post and engagement on like 5 sentences, right? Because they're like kind of funny and sarcastic, and maybe it's a reshare of somebody else's post with their unique angle on it, and they only need 3 or 4 sentences to make their like sarcastic comment that is intelligent and poignant, right? Everyone's got a different style that I feel like you don't want to get boggled down into trying to figure out like I do this formula because then it's starting to bleed into trying to hack it. With that being
Hmm.
said, um, specifically for LinkedIn, you got to start. I would say you want to like totally obsess over the hook. Like, what's the first 2 sentences? Because it doesn't matter
Oh,
how good your story is. LinkedIn only shows the first 2 sentences, uh, and
yeah.
then you have to press read more. So you might have literally the best. You might have all the secrets, but if nobody clicks the read more, nobody's going to see it, and it's not going to be
Hmm.
shared. So how do you optimize around getting people to click? There's like an art form in that. Um, oftentimes you want to think about like if somebody's scrolling it through, like maybe delivering some type of promise, right? Or like some type of pattern disrupt so you can kind of lead with what they're going to get out of it at the end, right? Like a good example of this would be if you're trying to if you're, let's say, in LinkedIn networking, like we are, and we're trying to get somebody to uh, read the story that's like about like tips around networking. If I just
Yeah.
say, here are 3 tips for networking, one, that kind of is a little boring. Now, if I said I was getting I made no money off of LinkedIn until I started doing this one thing and everything changed.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's different.
Right. So now all of a sudden you're like, you read that and you're like, okay, let me just click the read more and then
Just to
scan what
see.
let me
Yeah.
see what he says. Right. So now the story of what I'm gonna say has no is kind of separate from the hook. That's kind of my point. Is like you want to think about the story. And obviously like what your unique take on is, I would start there, but then you really want to optimize for that hook by trying to think through how do you get somebody to open it and read more. And oftentimes it's kind of like, foreshadowing the promise and make sure that you deliver on the promise. People
Yeah.
like,
No clickbait. Is that what they call
yeah,
it?
no clickbait.
Clickbait?
Yeah. You could think of it like a thumbnail, right? This is what Mr. Beast does really well, right? Is it doesn't
Mhm.
matter how good your video is if the packaging of your title and thumbnail aren't like you're not obsessed over that, you're not going to get view duration. So in the same way that you want to get like read, your post is read and shown to more people, you want to optimize around the packaging. The packaging is, in my opinion, the hook, those first 2 sentences. And it also, I've seen, helps if you have an image, oftentimes an image of your face or something, some visual. The reason is also because it takes up more space on the newsfeed. whether or not that's a video or an image, it just takes up more space. Like your post looks bigger, like physically, than just two sentences right there. So like, and you just get more room in the space and in the feed to play with. So you want to obsess kind of over the packaging of it is what I have seen the best people do.
Yeah.
That gives you an increased chance of people engaging with your post.
Yeah, absolutely. And having somebody, being somebody with a gift basket business, we know packaging is what sells. People don't really care that much. My wife says it all the time. People don't care what's in the gifts that much, really. What they want to know is that it looks amazing. It looks like it has a ton of value inside. That it's not tiny. It looks big. Looks you know flamboyant and exciting, and it's also nicely designed, nicely packaged. So the hook and the thumbnail are how we package stories on social media. Okay, how do you and I guess how do you do that in a sales call though? How do you use storytelling when you get on a call with your target audience?
So yeah, now we're entering into like a totally different type of storytelling. What I
Okay.
was, which is fine. What I the best way that I say I always tell people this on sales calls is you want to have your stories kind of prepackaged. That's the answer, right? Because you want to stick somewhat to stories that you're familiar with, so you could package the story. Uh, you're more polished, you're more packaged. You have your three or four stories that you can relate to. That's different than social media because you can consistently refine your packaging like over time. I mean, let's use Mr. Beast, right? Like he can't redo every video. Like people want new stuff. So, but if he's going into a sales call or like an investor meeting, he's probably saying very similar things every time. Here are my metrics. Here's where I came from. Like, this is what I do. He's not winging that, right? And also the packaging associated with how he's presenting himself and his business and Beast Enterprises in like however long he has, 20, 30 minutes, is not like all the ideas that he has for his channel, right? You have to understand your audience. That's kind of the main context is you want to understand your audience and, package yourself for that audience. So your social media audience is much more diverse and you have to think through like a much more, you're not going to not every post is going to go viral. That's not the
Yeah.
point. You want to think through how do you kind of give enough for everybody that they have like a good sense of your brand. But then when you're on a sales call, that's more conversion minded. You're there for a reason. So how you share your story needs to be more packaged. Like I find that sometimes people overshare in sales calls. I've seen this with
Okay.
clients where they think, I think wrongly, that the more information somebody has, the better it is. And sometimes I think that they overshare so much information that, you know, falls flat essentially as like a storyteller where you're giving so much maybe technical advice or background advice. I've even done this in the past and have gotten that feedback before where, I'll give you an example. It's like if I'm kind of pitching Pursue Networking, at a certain point, do I need to start with the fact that I went to law school? I worked in corporate America. You understand? It's like you're starting to give like where are you starting here? Because
Mhm.
you're going to confuse people, even though that is an accurate portrayal of the story of like how I grew a service-based business. Like nobody really cares at that point. Not say, but the reason I say that is because we've talked about this offline that one of my best performing posts was like pivoting after law school, right? So that's a relevant story that is part of my story that my network liked. But if I'm pitching for service-based business or software,
Yeah.
starting a story about how I went to law school is not engaging. It's like a bad hook for
Whoa.
for the audience because they're all sitting there being like, well, what is this guy going to do for me? So if I start talking about my law background, they're going to be like, I don't really get how that is super relevant. But that's my best performing post on LinkedIn. Like after law school, I pivoted and didn't practice law. people like that. That was a good hook. It was a good story. But yeah, it's totally it's an irrelevant story for a sales call.
Oh, okay, yeah. So understand the context and
Yeah.
understand who you're speaking to, which is kind of tied to the context. The audience is, kind of determines the context. So I totally get you. Thank you. Those are good perspectives. The age group, the demographic, the type of content that your followers naturally consume or normally consume. That's pretty good. So, but I think a lot of us don't even know who's following us on social media. Like, if you
But
should break down all your connections, like, what's the split? Like, age group, interests,
I
demographics.
think I think that you shouldn't. That's I think that anybody that's writing for LinkedIn or building an audience online should have an understanding of their ICP. You don't leave that up to like you're writing for somebody. Your ICP can change over time, right? If certain posts or things that you're doing you see is working, that you kind of understand that more people are following you for a particular reason, you might like change your ICP in your head, but you got to like work backwards from your ICP. So like for example, if I was in a sales call and I'm talking about people who are there wanting to grow on LinkedIn, I
Yeah.
can't start talking about me and law school and like my years in corporate America and web development and building software. You're confusing them. It's all relevant stories, but you're confusing them. The story that they want to hear is how I figured out how to optimize my time to get results on LinkedIn. Like I have a good workflow and I built software around my workflow. Now all of a sudden they're like, okay, maybe that can help me, right? We're kind of linking the hook and the intro to like relevance for that particular conversation. So they could ask me questions and we can kind of engage in discourse about like, well, what do you mean by software? Like, how does that work? What do you mean? And then if they're interested after learning about that to say, how did you get here? Like, what's your background? Now maybe those stories might be a little bit more relevant
Yeah.
because they're asking, they're curious. But if I start with all that information, it's a lot to process, and you want to kind of hone in on processing. I think it's really important to have an audience in mind, even if you're just starting out. So, and it could be broad for you, right? Like, it's maybe service-based businesses that are looking to grow on LinkedIn, right? You're
Yeah.
sharing your story about a service-based business learning to grow on LinkedIn. You could tell stories about how you believe that networking is important because you have guides that come inbound, let's just say, when you take action. So actions create data. You have a relevant, story to share that like, by you taking action, you've met people that otherwise you wouldn't have met. They have helped you
Mhm.
in X, Y, or Z, right? Now you're going to create relevance for somebody who might be on the hook thinking, should I do this LinkedIn thing? Right? Because that's who you're trying to attract. Like that's your ICP. You want somebody who is maybe on the fence of like, should I prioritize LinkedIn or should I not? Or maybe I know I should prioritize, but I don't know the blueprint. Or I wish that I had a guide. I wish that somebody I could work with to kind of help me think through my own workflow. You
Mhm.
have to kind of start with a frame of like a hypothesis with like, who do I think my ICP is? And let me write towards them. And if you write and you see, do you get results? Test it for 30 days. Write a
Yeah.
lot of, see if it's going up. And if not, then change your ICP, change the stories.
Yeah. Nice. 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 All right. I get you. I get you. So, how often should we be posting on social media? Should it always be stories? Should we always be sharing something more perspective, or should we kind of mix it in with reposts or mix it in with something a little less engaging and entertaining?
I
Is
feel like
there any
everybody,
guideline, or just if you whenever you feel like it, you
yeah, I
just
think
post?
whatever, I think the people who get the most results, to be totally honest, and I'm not even saying I am this person, but I follow a lot of people. I think the people who get the most results are people who don't overthink it,
Yeah.
right? Because you have certain people who have such a strong opinion, maybe on that question, only do this, this is what I do. And then you have other people who are like, maybe you would say they're ADD, who post 3 times a day and post whenever something comes to their mind. And those are the ones who usually wind up getting a lot of results. because
Yeah.
the you know my answer to that is, now that I qualified that, is like it comes down to personal branding, right? Because you want to be like somewhat, you want to think through an IC, like a specific ICP, and you want to kind of be known for something, even if it is somewhat variety of things. So like you want to think about brand. What are you trying to get known for? And then do a lot of things within that umbrella and try different things. And I wouldn't get too boggled down on saying, like, don't be hard on yourself to say I have to post uh, 3 times a day. If you don't want to, that's fine. Don't even be hard on yourself to say I only posted 2 times this week. That's not enough. It's just be consistent. And also, I think the people who usually get results, the best results, are the people who enjoy the process, who like actually enjoy writing and working with their network, and like, trying different things and
Yeah.
seeing what works.
Okay. All right then. Cool. So take the pressure off, guys. There's no posting schedule to follow if you're trying to grow on LinkedIn. Just make it relevant. Make it relevant to your audience, and figure out who it is that your ideal customer profile is, and write to them. All right. So I've got my homework, Colin. I need to start writing for my ideal customer profile, and not just generally. Right. Let me expand from company updates, and share some story. Maybe I should write about the river trip. Share a photo. From the river trip, and then share my perspective on it that I think would add value to my ideal target audience. Yeah.
Yeah. I also, to be honest, I see a lot of people who blend the personal with the business well. I think there's creativity associated with that, where it's like
Yeah.
I see people who will say something like, you know, they'll start with a personal story, like what you just said about the river trip, and then they kind of spin it to, and this is what my takeaway was on how that applies to networking,
Yeah.
or like business, right? So sometimes it's cheesy, sometimes it's actually quite clever. Sometimes I appreciate what they did there, whereas like they start with like something that kind of looks like it would maybe be on Instagram, but then they kind of spin it back to their ICP. And this is why it's really important that you think about this type of thing that I'm involved in business.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, thank you very much, Colin. Every time we jump on, there is some glimmer of hope for not just me, but for, I think, for everybody that's watching. Shout out to Facebook. Yes, Facebook. I'm actually streaming on Facebook, as well, Colin. And you're streaming on LinkedIn and YouTube, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Okay. All right, I'll work my way up to
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Well, I'm not gonna. I'll stream on Facebook too someday.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Awesome. All right, Colin. Hey, so let's brainstorm for what we'll talk about next week. All right. So I'll see you in our session.
All right. Cool. It was great talking with you, and we'll talk again next week.
Same. Bless up.
Take care, man. Bye, man.